Hey, welcome to the Then Answer Studio. Today I want to show you how to put together this simple yet elegant ballerina table. Using the silhouette of a ballerina or your favorite princess, you can make a beautiful tablescape for your next party or event. So follow along and I'll show you how to make it. The body of the ballerina is made from this 32 by 40 inch piece of foam core, which is the largest size I could buy at my local craft store. If you can't get a hold of one this large, you can always take two pieces and tape them together on the back. Next, you'll need an enlarged silhouette of a ballerina or princess that we can put on top of our foam core. If you like the template I'm using today, I have both a 39 inch and a 26 inch version linked in the description box below. Roughly cut out the template and lay it on top of the foam core so that the waist of the ballerina is aligned with one of the straight edges of the foam core. This will ensure that the bottom of the ballerina is nice and square, and it saves us from having to make another cut. Then just ensure that all parts of the template are on top of the foam core, and do the same thing for the support flap, making sure that we align the longest edge of the flap along the longest edge of our foam core. Once I'm happy with the placement of the template, I'm going to secure it to the foam core using tape every couple of inches along the edge. The two most important tools we'll be using today are a self-healing cutting mat and a really sharp craft or hobby knife. Now, it's always important when you're cutting foam core to start with a brand new blade, as a dull blade can end up ripping instead of cutting through the foam core. Now, as I cut out my foam core, I often take my cuts in two passes, making the first cut really accurate to the template, and then going through and making a second deeper cut to cut through that second layer of paper. Because our template is taped on top of the foam core, we need to be mindful about the order in which we cut out the template. So for instance, I have this gap between the fingers and I need to cut that piece out first before I cut around the outside edge of the hand. Because if I do it the other way around, the template will no longer be secured to the foam core and I might miscut it. Probably the trickiest part to cut out on this template or any silhouette is going to be the face. So make sure you take your time, and in those really tight spots, for instance the lip where you can see it come to a point, press the knife straight down into that point and cut outwards instead of trying to cut into that point, and take these sharp curves in shallow passes. It's better to make multiple cuts than to press your way through it and accidentally rip the foam core. Once you're done cutting out the ballerina and the support flap, you can either leave them white as the foam core or you can paint them. I'm using this metallic gold spray paint to cover my ballerina and the flap. And it's important whenever you're spray painting foam core, you need to do it in light passes, as adding too much moisture on top of the foam core can cause it to bubble and warp. I coated both the front and back of my ballerina and the flap with 2 coats of spray paint, and that was enough to get a nice even coverage using this type of spray paint. Now, you don't want to leave any white spots on the ballerina, and that includes the edges, so make sure you tilt your spray can and you hit all of the edges of the foam core, because otherwise that white is going to peek out. While the paint on my ballerina dries, I'm going to go inside and start prepping my 4-foot wide round table. And the first thing I want to do is give my table a beautiful base layer. So I've got this 108 inch wide round tablecloth in this dusty pink. I've specifically picked this size because that's long enough for the tablecloth to go all the way from the edge of the table down to the floor, because we don't want the legs of the table peeking through our tulle tutu. Now, to make that tutu, I've got 14 yards of this pink tulle. That's 1 yard for each foot of circumference around my table. I then took this long length and folded it in half, so it's 7 yards long by 54 inches wide. With the tulle laying flat on a table, I'm going to take a needle and thread and leave the thread attached to the bobbin, so I've got as much as I need. And then I'm going to take that needle and loosely zigzag it up and down between the 2 layers of tulle, all the way down that 7 yards of fabric. Now, I want my needle to be about a ½ inch in from the edge of that fabric, with each stitch up and down being approximately 1 inch in length. You don't have to worry about being super precise, as once we cinch this all up, you won't see the thread or your stitches in the tulle. Once your stitches get to the end of the fabric, you're then going to gather up all the fabric length down into a 24-inch section. So you're going to leave long tails of thread and then gather all those ruffles up, so they're about 24 inches in length, which will be just enough to wrap around the waist of our ballerina. Once the paint is dry, we can take a close look at our ballerina and decide which side we want to be the front. As foam core dents really easily, pick whichever side is nicest and put it face down on the table. Now to the back side of the ballerina, we're going to secure the flap, which will help the ballerina stand up. And to do that, I'm going to use a little bit of clear packaging tape, as this will pretty much disappear. So I'm going to take a long piece of tape and put it along the long side of the flap, with half of that piece of tape hanging off the edge. Now I'm going to align the bottom edge of the flap with the bottom edge of the ballerina, fold up that tape so it doesn't accidentally stick before I'm ready, and then I'm going to square up the flap so it goes straight up the center of the ballerina. Once I'm happy with the placement, I'm then just going to press that tape deep into the corner of that fold and flatten it out against the back of the ballerina. I'm then going to repeat this with another piece of tape near the top of the flap and secure it down. Now, having tape on one side of this flap allows the flap to fold up for easy transport, but if it has trouble staying open, you can always add tape to the other side to make it sturdier. With all the elements prepared, let's build our ballerina. So first I'm going to place the ballerina in the very center of the table with the nice side facing out towards the party. Then I'm going to grab the tutu that we made earlier and place the gathered end of that tutu up against the waist of the ballerina, making sure I put the center of that gather right in the center front of the ballerina, and then wrap the gather all the way around the back so that the very edge of our tutu should be touching the flap behind her. Then evenly distribute the skirt around the edge of the table and distribute the ruffles by pinching a ruffle at her waist and then picking up that same amount of fabric at the edge of the table and pulling it taut. This is going to give a beautiful sunburst effect in the tutu, so it all starts at her waist and those gathers extend to the edge of the table and down to the floor. The combination of a 4-foot wide table with our 54-inch wide tulle means the tutu is floor length, so there's no table peeking out underneath our tutu. This design can be adapted to lots of different sizes of tables, whether you want to go up to a 6 or 8 foot round, or down to a high top table that's only 24 inches wide. With the tutu in the template, the sky's the limit. If you enjoyed today's project, you should check out this video next, and I'll see you in a future project. Bye!